I have pulled out the debt payoff tracker, and today we're going to talk about my unexpected medical debt, which clocks in at $10,940. So if you're interested in hearing about that, stick around. Okay, so I have talked about this a little bit before in some of my previous videos, but just in case you haven't been following along or maybe you're new here, I have a cat named Clyde. He is 13 years old, and a couple weeks ago, we ended up at my vet because he just wasn't himself, and he smelled like nail polish remover, like acetone. And at first, I noticed it for maybe 2 or 3 days, and at first I thought, was I using nail polish remover? Like maybe there was some spilled somewhere or a bottle was open somewhere. Like in retrospect, that really didn't make any sense. But I was like, I could smell this, but I didn't smell it all the time. And so that was also why I didn't do anything about it at first. And again, it was just a couple days, but I was like, this just seems weird that I can smell this in my house. And it wasn't like I could smell it on him, on his breath or anything, but like sometimes I'd pick him up or he'd walk over and I could smell it and then I wouldn't smell it again. So it was a Friday a couple weeks ago and I could smell it again, and he just seemed not himself. And he, like I said, he's 13, so he sleeps a lot. He's an older, senior cat. And so sleeping a lot isn't really out of the ordinary. He's also been drinking a lot of water, which he's always been a good water drinker. I know that they say that cats don't get a lot of hydration, and so that's why sometimes a vet will recommend that you feed your cat canned food because it has a higher moisture content. But our cats have always been really good water drinkers, but he was drinking a lot of water. I can see this now in retrospect. So it was, like I said, it was a Friday, and I just decided that I did not want to be having to go the whole weekend if there was something wrong, because I was like, I'm not about to pay for an emergency vet visit. We're not doing that. We're going to go to the regular vet. So I called my regular vet, and fortunately they were able to squeeze me in at the very end of the day. So I took him over there, and I said, I Googled, why does my cat smell like nail polish remover? And strangely enough, there were actually quite a few different articles or like comments about why a cat would smell that way. And one of them was keto acidosis. And so I told my vet that I found that information, and she sort of chuckled and was like, okay, well, we'll see. Like, sure, let's see. And I feel like she wasn't being dismissive, but she also kind of didn't believe me and said, we should do a full senior panel of blood work. We should probably do an x-ray. We should do, I don't know, she named off a couple other things. And I was like, that sounds very expensive. Like, what would you start with? Because I just don't know if I can afford to do all those things. Like what would you start with? And she said, let's do the blood work. We'll do a full senior panel, which includes blood work and a urine culture. And so she got the urine, and she actually got some blood too, but she did the urine culture like in the office before they sent it out. And she found that his glucose levels were over 500 and probably close to 600, which is much too high. Like a normal range, I think, don't quote me, but I think for a cat, normal range is like 100 or maybe to like 80 to 100, something like that. And I don't know how this compares to people either, but so he was in a diabetic ketoacidosis crisis, and she said, you have to take him to the emergency vet, like right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, that also sounds very expensive. So what are my options? Like, what's going to happen if I don't take him? Like, can we treat this? Can you give him something? Like, what are we looking at? She said, sometimes in a case like this, you can treat with insulin. But if his sugars are that high, then it's serious. And she said, I will do what you want, but I recommend highly that you take him to the emergency vet. So what we did, we went to the animal hospital, and we got there and they called ahead. So we got there, they took him back, and started him on like fluids to hydrate him, because even though he had been drinking a lot of water, he was peeing a lot and had lost a lot of fluids, and his electrolytes were completely unbalanced. So they started him on fluids, on electrolytes, and they hooked him up to all sorts of things and were doing more tests. And essentially, he was in the cat ICU for 4 days. At one point, we were talking about what would happen if he did not become more responsive. So this was on a Friday, and then Sunday night, I met with the vet, overnight vet, and we were there like all the time. We just would, we'd leave to go home, and then we'd come back, and he was getting worse. I feel like he was getting worse. He wasn't eating anything. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't using the litter box. And he was doing all those things at home. So things they were just getting worse and getting worse and getting worse. And, they were treating him, just maybe not very aggressively, because I guess when you are in that situation, as a cat, if they hydrate you too quickly, or if they give you insulin too quickly, it can create more problems. So they're being very, cautious, I think, with their treatment plan. And so, on Sunday, the doctor said, if he doesn't get better, then I think if he doesn't start to improve, he's not responding to the treatments. And if he doesn't start to improve, I think we're going to need to take a look at some other options. And I knew what that meant was we would need to look at euthanizing him. And I did not like that at all, but I also understand that when you have to look at quality of life, and if the quality of life isn't there, then that's the right thing to do for an animal. So I was distraught. Like, I'm sure you can imagine if you have a pet. I was very upset. And we had my daughter come home from college. This was her cat. And she came to visit him a couple times with us. He ate a little bit from my husband. I think he was mad at me. Honestly, I truly believe he was mad at me. He would turn around in the cage, like barely could get himself up. He couldn't really walk or anything. He would kind of like scooch himself around. So he was facing the back corner of the cage. Like, it's not a cage. It was like the, what do they call it? I don't even know what it was, but like the area, the pen that he was in. When I was there, when I would visit, he would like turn himself around. So I couldn't see him, and he wasn't facing me. I truly believe that he was mad at me for bringing him there. So continuing with the story, he did not get better on Monday, and in fact was completely unresponsive to me. Just wouldn't wake up. I couldn't get him to wake up. He was alive still, but just not moving, not responding, breathing, just sleeping really, really hard, it looked like. And so I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, because it is a little bit of a blur. Because it was so traumatic. We transferred his care from the emergency room doctors to the internal medicine doctors. Now, if you know anything about medicine with people, if you're transferred from an ICU situation into internal medicine, it's kind of like a step down, but it is more specialized. Whereas with this animal hospital, it was actually a step up. And so he was still going to be in the ICU and still being cared for by the patient, like nurses, in the ICU, but he would also have an internal medicine doctor and like their special nurse. And if anybody's a vet tech or like a vet nurse, I'm not even sure of the words. So I apologize if I'm not using the right terminology, because I definitely don't mean to be disrespectful. But like a vet, like an internal medicine vet specialist, and the vet. So we're going to be also following his care. So we transferred him over. I think it actually might have happened Sunday night into Monday morning. And so they saw him Monday morning. And that vet actually saw him when he first came in, because they needed to do an ultrasound of his pancreas, because it turns out he has a very mild case of pancreatitis, and that was probably contributing. We're not sure which came first, but that was there. It was happening. And he saw him on the Friday or maybe Saturday, early Saturday, to do the ultrasound. And he was very surprised that Clyde was still at the ICU. So he took over the care, increased his insulin considerably, which brought his sugars down like it's supposed to, and he started to get better. And so 4 days later in the ICU, he was discharged to home on the following Tuesday, which has been a very steep learning curve for us. He had started on insulin, 3 units twice a day, every 12 hours. That was way too much. He's a big guy. He's a big cat. He's a Siberian cat, but that was definitely way too much. He's also a very sensitive guy. His blood sugars plummeted. The first night, they were down in the 50s to 60s. We have a continuous glucose monitor on his back, which is like a round glucose monitor. It's just like the ones that people wear. It's called a Libre. And they shaved part of his back and stuck it on and then like put some skin glue. So he travels around with it on. He doesn't even seem to notice it. And there's an app on my phone that monitors his glucose readings, his sugars. And it's like, again, continuous. So when it goes below or too high, which it only did, actually it's never alarmed for going too high. It did go up into the 300s one time. That might have been a fluke, I'm not sure. But anytime it goes below 60, it alarms. And it's like a very loud, sort of like an alarm clock type alarm on your phone, which wakes me up, scares the heck out of me. The first night it happened, I would say about a dozen times. So probably every 20 to 30 minutes, his alarm was going off and I didn't know what to do and I was terrified. And so I was trying to get him to eat and he didn't want to eat. Because the way that insulin works is insulin lowers your blood. And this is, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, so take this all with a grain of salt, but my understanding of the way insulin works is that you eat, the food increases your glucose levels, and then you need to have insulin, which your body either makes or doesn't make. His body doesn't make it, and so we have to give him insulin to bring that down. So we're supposed to give him insulin after like breakfast and dinner, 12 hours apart. So we gave him his dinner insulin and his dinner, and then it plummeted his blood sugars so much so that it just kept alarming and alarming and alarming. And he wouldn't eat. He just was like, absolutely not. I'm not eating. But like, how do you get an animal, at least a cat? I mean, cats are so independent. How do you get a cat to eat when they don't want to eat? So here's me, 2 a.m. Honestly, I got no sleep, like 0 hours of sleep that night. And I'm like trying to shove honey down his throat. And because that's what the instructions said, is to rub some honey on their gums or corn syrup. And so I'm like squeezing honey down his throat, terrified that he's gonna die. And he did not, but he also didn't like honey, which I was hoping he would, but he didn't. And so all that, and here we are today. We've adjusted his insulin level. He's actually doing much better. He was having a lot of accidents outside of the litter box. That seems to be, we're working on it. It's a little bit better. He's eating a different kind of food. And I think that that's causing some like gastrointestinal issues with him. And so things aren't great in that regard, but they're not terrible. And every day it seems like he's a little bit better. He's eating better. He's moving around better. He's much more independent. And his glucose levels they seem to be regulating slightly. They're still dropping a little bit low in the evenings, but I'm not sure why that is. So hopefully our doctor for him will have something to say about that on Monday. But that is my long story to tell you why we have some unexpected medical debt. And I've brought out this debt payoff tracker to take care of it. So I'm going to fill this out. You've seen this before. When I had my Invisalign, I actually did this and was able to pay it all off. We put his vet bill from the hospital onto a special credit card that we opened. They offered it to us. It's called Care Credit, and you may have heard about it. It is kind of, oops, that's not how you spell credit. It's kind of, I think it's for like, people can get it too, but I think I've heard about it a lot with like animal hospitals or vets that you can open it. It's like, it was instant. They basically were like, we just put some stuff into my phone and click, and then we had a credit card. So it is a 0% interest rate. We got that for 6 months. So our first payment is due early January. So I'm not sure if that means that 6 months is like January, February, March, April, May, and June. I think that's probably how it works. So I'm going to just assume that early June is the payoff, and I'm going to put that the payoff date is May 31st. And I'll adjust that once I get my first statement and talk to somebody and make sure that I'm doing it right. Because what happens is you put your amount on the credit card, you get a promotional rate of however many months at 0% interest rate. If you do not pay it off, then your full total will accrue interest. So even if I only have, let's say, $1,000 left, if by that last due date, I haven't paid it off, I will accrue interest on this full $10,940, which is bananas. Also because the interest rate is like over 30%. So it is very important that we get this paid off very quickly. So I have pulled out this debt payoff tracker, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm starting down here with 10,940, and I'm going to figure out what half of that is. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 10,940 divided by 2 is $5,470. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So about here is half. That is 5,470. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Let's see. And then half of that is 2735. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll just do that here, 2735. And we'll add that. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So hopefully if I've done this right, it gives me a couple markers of payment amounts, and then when I get up here, it'll be 0. So when it reaches the top, and I know this is not exactly how you're supposed to use a thermometer like this, but instead of going up with amounts, I like to go up with the debt remaining. So when I pay my first payment, it will, I'll color off here how much I have left. So as I decrease the debt, the thermometer will go up. And that's how I like to do it. So this payoff tracker is one that I made. I like to put the date, the amount that paid, the balance I have left after that payment is made, and then any notes. So notes would be something like if I did an early payment, or if I got money from somewhere and I put it towards that, just anything that I might want to make a note. There might also be no notes. So it really just depends on how I'm feeling, but I made a little note section for myself. So this is my unexpected medical debt. It is cat medical debt, but for me, it was important. We were just not ready to let him go, and we decided that we needed to do whatever it took, as long as the vet was saying that it was survivable, and it was, and he has. So I'm super thrilled that he's home. I'm really happy that he's getting better and getting stronger every day, and now it is time to tackle this debt. So if you're interested, follow along. I will do at least once a month a debt payoff update, and I will probably do it more often than that because I'm going to be making payments more frequently than once a month. But in the meantime, this is also an important part to mention. So I think I had told everybody that my plan was to use my 100 envelope savings challenge for my daughter's last year of college. And I have decided that instead we're going to use it to take care of this debt first because of that interest rate. Being such as it is, that is definitely the priority here. So I need to find my 100 envelope binder, which I think fell on the floor. So hold on one second. All right, so I had to run upstairs for it. So if you've seen this before, this is my 100 envelope savings challenge. And what I do with this is I use these smaller amounts and I condense them into larger amounts. And then I put $100 bills into all the slots in the back. So today I have $200 to add from weekend side hustles. And that is pretty much how I have funded this. Let's see, there we go. I have funded this mostly by side hustles and savings challenges. So I'm going to put this in here. And I'm gonna really try to knock out a lot more savings challenges. I feel like I've slacked off a little bit, and I have all the money that I've allocated it. It's just not, I'm not doing the savings challenges. So let's see how much we've got here since we have it out. We've got 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I have $1,500 saved right now, which is a great start. What I'd like to do is get more, and I don't know that I'm going to pay off the credit card like all at once, but I definitely want to pay it off in large chunks. So I'm not really sure how I want to do this. And I also think that to keep me motivated, if I take this out, if I unstuff this savings challenge, and I'm going to make like little cards, like index cards or something, whatever fits in here. And I'm going to put like, paid or something. I'm going to put like $100 paid, $100 paid, something like that, so that it's not just empty, because I want to be able to see that like I have actually completed this, but I just have to use it. So hopefully that makes sense. But in the meantime, I'm going to start doing a lot more savings challenges. We're going to complete the savings challenges and put them in here. I love to do my minis. I'm also going to try to start doing some tinies. And that is how we're going to get through this. And we're going to get this medical debt paid off. So I hope that you'll join me. I appreciate you being here. Feel free to leave me a comment if you have ever been through anything like that with any of your animals, where you've got a really large medical bill, but you just felt like it was worth it. And I'd love to hear about it. So thanks so much for being here. If you have not subscribed, please consider doing that. Also, I appreciate everybody who's been watching my videos and helping to increase my watch hours. I do have a goal of 4,000 watch hours by December 31st, and I'm well on my way. So thank you all again, and I'll see you in the next one.